Why is it that sometimes just one passive-aggressive comment, one disrespectful message, one unnecessary provocation is enough to set you off? And suddenly you're pulled in. You feel the urge to respond, to push back, to prove something. You replay the moment in your head again and again. What should I say? How do I shut this down? How do I show them it's not me? Why is it that even when you know some people were never trying to understand you, some conversations were never worth having, some conflicts were never worth a second of your time, you still step into them, you engage, you react, you get pulled into something messy, low-level and draining? And why is it that the people who seem the most grounded, the ones others hesitate to provoke, the ones who feel distant, hard to read, are rarely the ones who argue the most, explain the most, or rush to defend themselves? Instead, they are the ones who stay silent when it's unnecessary, leave when it's not worth it, and sometimes don't even give it a second glance. If any of this feels familiar, then what we're exploring today is not about emotional control, and it's not about communication techniques. We're going somewhere deeper and a little more uncomfortable, because the truth is this: you are not being drained because these people matter that much. You're being drained because a single sentence from them can make you start explaining yourself, because a single attitude can make you replay and rethink for hours. And sometimes, even when they do nothing at all, you've already played out an entire conversation inside your own mind. And from this moment forward, there is something you need to learn, something most people never truly learn. Take your attention back. Stop responding. Stop explaining. And take your power back with it. You think you're responding, but what you're really doing is investing. The problem is, you never calculate the return. Someone questions your idea in a meeting, not aggressively, but just enough to leave a trace. The moment passes, but later it comes back. You replay their tone. You rethink your words. You start drafting a better response in your head. Time moves forward, but your attention doesn't. It stays there. The same thing happens in smaller moments. A comment online, a message that feels slightly off. It should have been nothing, but the moment you engage with it, it becomes something. Because here's how the mind works. It prioritizes what feels unresolved. The moment you respond, that moment is no longer finished. It becomes active. And once it's active, your mind keeps returning to it. Processing, replaying, expanding. They spend a few seconds. You spend minutes, sometimes hours. That's where the imbalance begins. You think you're dealing with the situation, but in reality, you're giving it weight. So the real question is never, what did they say? The real question is, did you let it enter your attention? Because once it does, it starts taking space. And attention is not neutral. In psychology, it's a limited resource. Whatever occupies it gains influence, whether it deserves it or not. People who are truly grounded don't try to respond to everything. They decide early, is this worth my attention? If the answer is no, they don't explain. They don't extend. They don't stay. They let it pass. Not because they're indifferent, but because they understand something clearly. Attention is power. And once you give it away carelessly, you've already lost control of where your energy goes. Most people have the same instinct. When something feels off, they try to fix it with words. A message isn't answered. You feel it. So you send another line. Maybe you're busy. A little later, another one. No rush, reply when you can. It feels polite. It feels reasonable. But underneath that, something else is happening. You're removing the space, and that space is where the power was. Because when something is left incomplete, the mind doesn't let it go. It keeps working, it tries to understand, it tries to fill in the gap. Why did they stop there? Did I say something wrong? You didn't say anything more. But in their mind, the conversation continues. That's how attention gets anchored. But the moment you explain everything, the loop closes. Nothing is left unresolved. And once it's resolved, attention moves on. The same pattern shows up in more visible moments. Someone challenges you in front of others. If you immediately explain, defend, clarify, you've stepped into their frame. But if you pause and continue as if it doesn't require a response, the weight shifts, because attention follows what remains open, not what's already settled. There's an unspoken rule in human psychology: the one who needs to be understood more holds less power. Explanation at its core is a request for validation. Silence, when chosen, is a form of stability. It says, I don't need to enter every conversation. I don't need to respond to every signal. And I don't need to prove myself to every voice. Silence is not avoidance, it's selection. And when you stop filling every gap, people begin to notice something. You are no longer easy to move. And once you are no longer easy to move, you become very difficult to shake. Most people believe influence comes from consistency. Stay present. Reply quickly. Keep the connection alive. Be there all the time. But that's not what creates weight. What creates weight is the ability to not be there. Because the moment your presence becomes required, it stops being a choice. And once it's no longer a choice, it stops being felt. The brain adapts quickly to what is constant. Stable input fades into the background. Only change pulls attention. That's why constant availability feels comfortable, but rarely memorable, and why selective presence feels different. Some people are not always there. They don't respond to everything. They don't engage at every moment. But when they do show up, it's clear. Not because they do more, but because their presence is intentional. And intention is what people notice. In psychology, we don't value what is always given. We value what could have been withheld, but wasn't. When someone can leave but chooses to stay, that choice carries meaning. But when someone has to stay, there is no meaning, only maintenance. This is where most people get it wrong. They believe that more effort creates stronger connection. But what it often does is remove their own flexibility. They make themselves predictable, always there, always responding, and predictability lowers perceived value because nothing is at risk, nothing can be lost. Real control doesn't come from doing more, it comes from keeping your options. You can enter, you can step back, you can respond, or you can let it pass. And when that freedom is real, your presence stops being expected and starts being felt. You might think impact comes from doing more explaining, more responding, more staying involved, but often what creates the strongest impact is what you choose not to do. When you're always present, you only occupy time, but when you step back, the mind finally has space to process you. When you explain everything, people understand you. But when you leave something open, they return to it. When you try to maintain everything, things become stable. But when you stop maintaining, tension begins to form. And tension is what holds attention. This isn't strategy, it's structure. The mind is not drawn to what is complete. It is drawn to what is unfinished, not to what is constant, but to what is interrupted. not to what is dependent, but to what is chosen. Once you see this clearly, you stop trying to fill every silence. You stop reacting to every signal. You stop proving your presence through constant engagement. Instead, you begin to choose when to step in, when to pause, when to leave something open, when to walk away, and something subtle starts to change. You are no longer being pulled, you are no longer reacting, you are no longer maintaining everything just to keep it alive. Your attention returns to where it belongs, to yourself, and when your attention returns to you, something shifts in the world around you. You don't need to be seen to be remembered. You don't need to hold your position to have one. This is not about controlling others. It's about no longer being controlled. And in that moment, you are no longer trying to stay in the game. You are choosing which game is worth entering. This is happy psychology. May you understand yourself with more clarity and meet change without losing who you are. See you next time.